Welcome back to The Ed Show. President Obama may have stolen his own headline last night. His strongest response came after a question about a controversial arrest of Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates. Here's what he said.
I think it's fair to say, number one, any of us would be pretty angry. Number two, that the Cambridge police acted stupidly in arresting somebody when there was already proof that they were in their own home. There is a long history in this country of African Americans and Latinos being stopped by law enforcement disproportionately.
Joining me now is Georgetown University professor Michael Eric Dyson. It's been too long, my friend. Good to see you again.
Brother Shultz, always good to see you. Congratulations on the show. You've done a great job.
Well, it's good to have you with us. Professor, what did you think of the president's response? It seemed to me it was more than genuine, but he was very eager to talk about this. What did you think?
Oh, no question about it. I think that people have been razzing him all day about, calling the police stupid. He didn't do that. He said acting stupidly. There's a critical difference there. And furthermore, I think it was great of him, Ed, to use his bully pulpit to shine a spotlight on this essential and critical social matter that many people are not familiar with and not aware of it because it doesn't affect them. The fact that it affected the most prominent and powerful scholar in the history of America for African American studies shows that he's if you will, the Rosa Parks of racial profiling. Here's a guy who doesn't stir up trouble. He doesn't go around fomenting controversy. He's very balanced. He's as at ease in, a white America as he is in black America, and yet he was subject to arbitrary forms of police, in his estimation, and what we may think, police profiling, and it was unfortunate, but it also has helped us understand and grapple with an issue that affects millions of other African American and Latino men.
Well, one of the arresting officers was Sergeant Dennis Crowley. Here's a radio comment which I find rather startling that throws fuel on the fire. Here it is.
That apology will never come. It won't come from me as Jim Crowley. It won't come from me as a sergeant in the Cambridge Police Department. Whatever anybody else chooses to do in the name of the city of Cambridge or the Cambridge Police Department is beyond my control, and I don't worry about that. I know what I did was right. I have nothing to apologize for.
Well, based on that response, Professor, it's a good thing the president did address it last night.
Oh, absolutely true. And, I've heard that Mr. Sergeant Crowley is responsible for sensitivity training or at least diversity awareness among police people. This would be a signal moment for him to reassess his skills in that area, but also to become much more empathetic and sensitive to the needs of citizens of color in this country. Again, nobody is mad at the fact that police are called when it looks like somebody is barging in your door. But I must say, Ed, I think that we owe an apology to the National Association for the Advancement of Black Burglars, because what kind of burglar is going to burgle a house at 12:45 in the day trying to get in the front door? You got to turn in your burglar card on that. The reality is that I think we've got to grapple with the fact that this kind of profiling happens routinely outside of Cambridge, where millions of black and Latino people are subject to much more than what Professor Gates was subject to. Many times it's greater harm, and we're glad that nothing more serious happened to him, but maybe this will spark us to have a conversation in this country, and I applaud the president for speaking bravely and directly to this issue, because Sergeant Crowley obviously and unfortunately doesn't have the wherewithal or the inclination to address this issue in a self-critical fashion.
Professor Michael Eric Dyson with us tonight here on The Ed Show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. For more, let's go back to our panel tonight. Carlos Watson, Stephanie Miller, and Michael Medved. How'd the president handle it? First of all, I wonder if there's an arrest quota with that police department. But it's a pretty gross mistake. Did the president have to go down this road last night?
I think he did. I think he got a very direct question from Lynn Sweet. I think the White House expected he'd get that question. I think the president, who spent a lot of time on this issue, both as an individual and as a state legislator, had to. I think I'll have to tell you what. I read what Sergeant James Crowley had said before. I understand that for 5 years he taught some diversity training within the force. I have to admit, when I heard the radio thing, I was sad. I don't know how else to say. I wasn't angry, wasn't frustrated. I was sad. That whole notion that you're never going to get an apology from me, there didn't sound like there was any reflection. Now, maybe he says, if you truly understand the story as I did, you'd understand why I feel this way. But I have to be honest, I know Skip Gates a little bit. I feel like you guys do. A guy in his 60s, middle of the day, he's in his home.
Well, I don't know why the guy didn't diffuse the situation by saying, no comment right now, we're working on it, and just let it go away. But for him to say what he did, I found rather amazing. Michael Medved, you pointed out earlier that it was President Obama's strongest response on the night, but he did personalize it, and I think that connected with a lot of people in America. Your thoughts?
I think you're completely correct. And he said that Skip Gates, Henry Louis Gates, was a friend of his, and I know that Professor
He said he was
Gates
biased about it, too, yeah.
Yeah, and he acknowledged that. I think he reacted like a human being, and I think that's exactly what was lacking in his health care comments. There was no sense of personal stake in this. Look, this case, I have great sympathy for our police officers. They're put on the front lines. They're asked to do all kinds of tremendous